Welcome to Kauffman Writes, the first creative writing stream on the internet for inspiration, motivation, strategy, discussion, advice, and maybe a little procrastination. But don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Welcome to Story Structure Tuesdays. I'm your host, Kauffman, and today we're going to be digging into how do you structure your story. We'll start by reviewing some of the workshops that we went over the past couple Tuesdays, and then we'll dig into today specifically. How do you structure uh, non-standard stories? So let's say you're working on a story. Let's say it's like a horror thriller type story with completely different characters. And you're like, I don't want it to follow the 3-act structure. I want it to be something completely different. We're going to be touching on some story structure ideas, themes, and elements. And then we'll hop into our daily writing sprint after that. But first, let's get through some housekeeping. First off, welcome Atomic, my friend. Welcome to the stream. And if you're watching this on the replay, I got you covered. I will add time codes to the stream after it airs. And that way you could hop to the part of the video that you want to watch. So that way you get the most value for the little amount of time that you have. And it looks like Isabella, welcome to the stream. Excellent. I hope your story's treating you well today. Let's see. And then, by the way, I want to actually throw up and call attention something that I'm super excited about. Brand new look over here. Let me throw it up. I have a brand new banner, which I've updated on both my socials, my YouTube channel, Kaufman's Corner, and Facebook. I was proud of it. I'm glad that I finally had a new refreshed look over what I had previously. So definitely, if you haven't already gone and check it out, go check out Kaufman's Corner. I feel like this kind of showcases what the offerings and what I have to share and the specific value you can get as a creative writer. So you'll see it at the top of my channels. And by the way, my initial cover, my initial one, I'm still playing around with ideas for Last Scarecrow. So as y'all know, I have 3 types of shows. Monday through Friday is our Kauffman Writes, where it's our casual writers group. Saturday is our story and critique show, where we will dig into your stories. I do live readings and critiques. I love doing that one. And then Sunday is the Creative Right Now podcast, where I interview industry professionals, published authors, and working writers. This Sunday's episode, we actually have a very published author, extremely exciting, very experienced, and we're going to be digging into how do you network correctly with writers, editors, publishers, so that way you can really get your story to the next level. All right. And we got that. Isabella, awesome. Thank you, my friend. So without further ado, let's hop into structuring your story. What do you do? What's the secret? What's the tea behind story structure? Now, if you joined me on our previous Story Structure Tuesdays, we actually did a couple of deep dives. So I just pulled up my notes from the previous ones, but essentially I always consider story structuring. Oh, no, I don't like that one. There we go. So what we went over for the previous Story Structure Tuesdays, I consider structuring your story a combination of 3 parts: plot, character development, or not character, but your character's journey, and then the technical side of it, like technical structuring paragraphs, dialogue, and all the things in between. So the overall structure of your story is really a combination of different sections. Now, of course, your narrative and your plot, that's its own separate category, and that's a whole thing in itself. Developing your character, whole separate category of just developing characters that matter. And then technical story elements. So if you missed out on our previous Story Structure Tuesdays, after the stream, I'll link below the previous story structure workshops. And that way you can click on the link after the stream or after you've checked out the video and check out and do more of a deep dive into these topics. And then last week, we went into kind of a more like step-by-step approach in structuring your story. I had a lot of fun digging into it. It was cool hopping into like, what do I do when I'm structuring my story? Now, I'm generally working on like a fantasy type story with the last scarecrow, and it's definitely it's different, but I'm used to doing a 3 act structure for most of my stories. Tommy, this is a great tidbit. Everyone knows it's coffee that fuels story structure, not tea. You know what? You're speaking to somebody who worked in the coffee industry for over 10 years, and you are absolutely right. Especially when I was in my Hollywood days, you couldn't go into a Starbucks or a coffee shop without there being at least 10 to 15 writers in any given coffee shop environment. Amen. I was like, I don't think I can get through a normal like writing session without some caffeine. But you know what? We'll try to keep it a little healthier over here. I'll try to stick to the tea. So I went into my step-by-step approach last week when I was like structuring my story. There's absolutely no right or wrong method. Looks like we cut out there for a second. So there's absolutely no right or wrong method when it comes to story structure. There we go. Just a second. I'm just checking up my processes. I'm like continuing to update my backend whenever I deal with technical issues, so I can troubleshoot the specific problems. All right. So essentially, what I do with story structure is I break it up into 5 segments. I come up with an idea. I then develop the protagonist. I come up with the outline, and then I like to write each piece of the story. And then I'm also focusing on the technical aspect of it as well. It's a method that's generally served me well. And if you've been sticking along with Last Scarecrow, you've seen me literally bring it to life. All 116, 115 days so far of Kauffman Writes. So it's definitely fun. Once again, if you want to check out more of that deep dive, I'll link the playlist with these workshops below. Yeah, that was some easy question. So structuring your story. So non-standard formats. Oh, here we go. So structuring your story for non-standard formats. So I asked myself, what was something that I could do a little differently today? Uh, and as I've been working with different clients and as I've been working on different like styles of storytelling, I'm like, all right, so all 3 act structure type, whether like fantasy or horror, or what's another popular, we could say thriller type story, right? So that's a pretty those are pretty common story structures to get into. Um, a lot of times we generally tend to work off a 3 act story structure inherently because that's the common style of storytelling that we're used to seeing on TV and media. Now, TV sitcoms tend to be a little bit more of a 5 act structure, but a lot of what's popular in this day and age is the 3 act model. All right, and bear with me just a second. I'm just checking some of my back end processes over here as I'm seeing it lagging up a little. All right, looks like it was lagging a little bit on my end. Hey, what's up, John? Welcome to the stream. I'll be popping in and out. My local booktube folks have some publishers on their channel. Yeah, totally no worries. We'll be here. You know, we're usually streaming for give or take an hour, depending on the day. Sometimes we get into the 2 to 3 hour segment, depending on how our storytelling comes. Totally no worries, my dude. Awesome. Yeah, whenever my the streams start lagging, I've gotten into the habit of, like, I start screenshotting and capturing all the data on the back end, so that way I can continue to troubleshoot. It is my hope I can stream on the higher quality and I can figure it out short of investing or until I invest in a professional grade camera. All right. So with that out of the way, so structuring non-story standard formats. So how do you think about structuring your story? If let's say you're throw up a bullet point here. So let's say you're putting together a story that doesn't follow like a stereotypical like hero's journey, right? Let's say it's a let's say that we're going to do a story that's more about like a series of really cool conversations, series of great conversations that are really cool to you. Let's say you want to frame it more in like a poetic style, like a series of poetry, series of poetry. Let's say that you want to starts at the climax and you want to work your way backwards. Starts climax and works backwards. Yes, Kauffman can spell this correctly. Nope, nope, nope. There we go. So how do you structure your story when it's not a common standard, it's not a common model? Now, there are a number of really popular storytelling structures out there in terms of formatting the the plot of the story. Make sure I'm not freezing up here. So what I always recommend is I always like to start with the character's journey or the core message that you're telling with your story. So whenever I come up with, let's see, I like to base it off. Nope. Let's say you're a protagonist. All right, so I like to base it off the protagonist, this whoever the core story is about. And awesome. Okay. So sorry, I'm doing some back end stuff here. So when you're structuring a non-standard story, um, I want I generally want to think about like what is my hero's journey because I like to structure the overall story around the hero. Sometimes a lot of writers will structure their story around the plot, and if you do, that's usually when we start thinking about like a three-act model. Or let's say I know Atomic you've mentioned Dan Harmon's Dan Harmon's storytelling model is another popular one. Let's see. Let me pull up different types of story structure models. There's a couple other ones that I know. I actually use a lot of my references. I'll close up a little bit. So I like to reference a lot of times the Save the Cat model because I love the Save the Cat model. That's what I learned for when I was doing screenwriting. But I know Save the Cat is a popular one. When we think of structuring, a lot of time for heroes, it's always referred to the hero's journey. That one's a little more focused around the how the hero progresses from the beginning all the way to the ending moment. That is a very classic one. So if you haven't read Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, that's like a standard for storytelling. So, but I always like to compare the difference between a story structure that focuses on the hero's journey as compared to a story structure like Save the Cat or Three Act, where it's a little bit more focused on the plot. I personally like to lean in on the idea of starting with your story that you're talking about, and that is the journey that you are following. So if you're basing it off your particular mm, yeah, the 7-point structure. That's an interesting one. 7-point structure. Yeah, I've seen that one as well, Atomic, the 7-point structure. When I think of, and I'll throw that up on the screen real fast. I've seen this one. This is a real what? No, I do not want that. So this is another really common one. This I think the good thing with the 7-point structure is it's a little easier to get the hang of, right? Where it starts off with a hook, and essentially it's focused on the plot point, a pinch point, which basically things get hard for the hero, the midpoint, which is the middle of the hero's journey, pinch point, things get hard again, plot point, which I really think is like the climax at heart, and then the resolution. Without digging too much into it, it's you can look at that what story structures do is they take the high and key moments of your story and then basically have turned it into a system. That's the same thing that the hero's journey does. That's the same thing that the 3-act structure does. It's the same thing that any of these models do. What you want to do with your story structure, if you're like, hey, this is a different type of story, you're basically creating your own system that's servicing your story in particular. So, what I mean by that, let's based off because I think that's actually a really good example. So my story starts at the climax and works backwards. Again, all right. It looks like the stream keeps messing with me today. So as I've kind of been fine deep diving into the back end of it, I thought for a moment it could be my computer previously, but I actually I think it's the internet. I think it's the internet itself, probably because I don't have a dedicated internet and I'm trying to stream at a higher quality. Based off the logistics that I'm seeing, even though I'm plugged in too, which is interesting. So that tells me that I'm probably going to be able to solve this in some future streams now that I have a better diagnosis. Okay, so where was I? Oh, let me pull up the screen. Perfect. And I think probably what I'll do, because I know this stream, I know last Tuesdays was a little hit or miss with the format of it. I'll probably come up with a specific video on story structure. I'll probably do it at some point in the future, and I'll go through the process kind of like a master class. I think that'll probably be the best way to go about it. Okay, so let's see where we're at. So let's say my story's starting backwards. I always to ending point. because that's an ending point. Telling technically, if we're telling it backwards, it's just starting at we're technically starting at the end. We're basically flipping it around, right? So let's say a character is going to get killed at the end. We're actually we're structuring the story with the character is dying. And then we're ending the story with technically how the character died, right? Let's see, Atomic. It looks like you touched upon the 7-point structure. Let's see, he starts with the resolution, then the hook, then midpoint, followed by the 2 plot points in front of the 2 pinch points. Interesting. Then the hook, then the resolution, which makes sense, right? So essentially, he's starting with the ending and then the beginning. And then he fills out the middle with the 2 points in between. And like it's interesting because it's not a story structure I'm familiar with, but it sounds a little reminiscent of my style of storytelling. Because at heart, what we're doing is we're telling a story with the high moments of a character in a character's worst point in their life, or the worst or high, either like the highest moment or the worst moment in this character's life. If it's not the most extreme, the worst or the highest, why are we telling the story to begin with? But thanks for sharing that, Atomic. Appreciate it. I know you're a little more familiar with some other models of storytelling structure. Thanks for sharing that. So I think this sounds like a pretty similar method. What I like to empower you to do. Yeah. Okay. So it looks like I mean, the stream keeps cutting in and out, so I'm hoping that you guys are that you're able to catch this. Um, so essentially, with how they died, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted here with the the technical difficulty of today's character died. You want to start with how they died, how I'm structuring it. So let's say even though you're not doing a 3-act structure, or maybe you're not doing a 7-point structure, you're not doing a hero's journey, I like to think of what are the highs and lows of your story. Think of what are going to be the most extreme points. Sometimes they can be called a resolution, a climax, a pinch point, like the 7-point structure. It could be called the resolution. I want you to think of your story in terms of what are the key moments. If you're going to think of the key moments, then you can structure your story around the key moments. And then essentially reveal to your readers. Becomes perfect. And then So in the example of this character, right? The character where they died in the beginning. Essentially, the key moments that I'm connecting. Let's say that I'm not going to do a traditional 3-act, and I have a couple key moments for this story. Another one. Character is brought back to life. The character discovers power to bring other characters to life, others to life. And then I'm going to do one more character dies again. Go into how the character dies. The second character is how it's brought back to life. Okay, so it looks like the stream's having a lot of technical difficulties, and clearly it's not working out today. So what I'm going to do, I will touch into this on a future video, because clearly, even though my computer's fine, it's just streaming at this quality is probably just not going to be possible. So what I'll do is I'll make sure to review this in a future video. Atomic. Thank you for joining in. Save this. Clearly it's having issues. Okay, and I'm just gonna hop into the writing sprint for the day, because it's clearly the stream doesn't want me to do the story structuring. It's a sign. Okay, so I'm gonna hop into a 30-minute writing sprint. And let me pull this up. I'm gonna pull up the music. There we go. And then hopefully we'll be able to have the have it fixed for next weekend, or not next weekend, for next week when we get into story structuring again. And also, like I said, I'll do another video on story structuring, so that way you can actually pay attention without it cutting out every 2 seconds. Okay. So let me do this. I'm going to throw up the music. I'm actually very eager to get into Last Scarecrow. All right, and we're just going to change gears here. All right, and I got this other screen set up. So I'm going to pull up the other screen. There we go. Awesome. All right, perfect. So I got the stream. I got it all set up. Awesome. So I got my story here at Scarecrow. I'm gonna embark on a 30-minute sprint today. Feel free to join me. You need to get some writing and work in. Otherwise, let's try. Let's get some quality writing in for you then. Right, and it's time to write now. Atomic. That's a really good idea. I'm doing some pre-recorded. I've been kind of going back and forth on dealing with the streaming issues. I think at heart, it's probably, if I want to like be streaming at a higher quality, I probably just need to have a dedicated router for it, is my guess. I think that's probably the only way until I get a camera to doing it without the webcam. Takes away some of the interactive nature of the live stream, but you can do it in segments so you can pause and highlight comments if desired. Yeah, because then my only downside to that though is then essentially it's coming across more like a video, right? And then I ask myself, well, why not just film a video and then do it through a video format? I think like part of the point of doing it through the live stream is to do it as an interactive. But I think maybe if I did like some pre-recorded segments, it's a possibility. It's something that would be worth playing around with. Hey, what's up, Silent? Welcome to the stream. Welcome, welcome. We're just doing a writing sprint right now. I hope school and everything's been treating you well. I'm making some great progress with Last Scarecrow. What's up, Stephanie? Welcome to the stream. Hopefully you're getting in some good writing today. I was just getting to the end of this little writing sprint. Good for you. Good luck with the editing, Stephanie, by the way. It's good that you're split your editing up into 2 processes. Especially as I've been like thinking about my editing process and what I'm going to do when I get to the editing stage. I'm like, how do I make it how do I make the editing process as like live stream friendly as possible? Good luck. How far are you into your story, by the way? I hope, because you're writing so consistently, you're probably a good ways in. Okay. That is where I had to get to. I needed to finish that break. All right. So I think that was pretty good. I want to say I did about, I think that ended up being about 45 minutes for me. Got a little good writing sprint. I was like making some good progress with Last Scarecrow. All right. So I feel really great about that. I hope you got some value out of the writing sprint as well. Um, Last, we're about to see, we're going to experience Pebble's backstory. We're going to experience a piece of her story, which we've been with Pebble for a while, so it's going to be interesting. And then they're going to be dealing with some consequences. So that's going to be fun. I'll probably be working on a crazier scene over the next 2 days as we move our heroes along to finally are they able to get to the graveyard of the last. So this will be quite the scene that we've been building up to. Hey, what's up, Silent? Thanks for stopping by the stream. Welcome. So that was really good progress I made with the writing sprint. I hope you got some good writing progress in as well. Yeah, and by the way, if you got value out of this stream, don't forget to follow and subscribe. I know I made some good progress. The story structure portion, we had some good information, but due to some of like the technical side of it, that was a little challenging. So I will be continuing to troubleshoot the technical side so that way we can have some smooth live stream experiences. And like I said, I'll probably do a longer form type masterclass video with structuring story, as it sounded like story structure is something that y'all want to learn more about and or chat about. So come join me. That will be fun. We'll do some more story structuring in the future. And that's what I got for you today. Tomorrow, we'll be doing World Building Wednesdays. I've been having fun digging into how do you create your own world? What are some tips, strategies, and methods when developing an entire world for your story that's not contingent on the plot, the character, and how do you do it correctly? So come join tomorrow. That will be a blast. Thank you all for dropping by the stream. That's all that I got for you today. I will catch all y'all tomorrow. Don't forget, words are wind and stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Bye, friends.